Welcome to Chasing Zero, an Ozinga safety podcast, where safety isn't just a priority, it's our mission. Each episode, we explore the real stories, strategies, and innovations driving us toward one powerful goal: zero incidents and zero injuries. Because when it comes to safety, we're not keeping secrets or settling for less. We are chasing zero. This week, we welcome Ozinga coworkers Luchene and Ritchie Dembinsky to discuss our driver apprenticeship program. With a combined 28 years at Ozinga, Barry and Ritchie will share what it takes to break down silos through this structured, intentional approach, while providing leadership opportunities as well as camaraderie and relationship building for the next generation of drivers. Here's Ozinga Health and Safety Vice President Adam Pummer.
All right, everybody, welcome to Chasing Zero. I'm your host, Adam Pummer, and our goals are to constantly chase zero incidents, zero injuries, and we don't believe that safety is a secret. And this is one of those topics today that we don't want to leave a secret. This is something that we probably could have kept a secret for a while. It is our apprenticeship program. I've got two great guests today. I've got Ritchie Dembinsky and I've got Barry Luchene. Ritchie really kind of led the way on creating this whole program, and Barry's kind of the driver mentor in the field that's running with all the content and running this program. So I'm really excited to talk about this. Let's go through a couple introductions first. Ritchie Dembinsky, you want to explain how you got to where you're at right now?
Yes, sir. So I started working for Ozinga when I was 16. My dad's with the company, and it was one of those where as soon as I got my license, he said, you can use one of my cars, but you're paying for the gas. So started doing quality control. I was able to be a plant operator, worked in the dispatch office as a closer while I was going to school. And when I graduated from college, I was offered the position, interviewed for the position as safety manager for Illinois, North, and Wisconsin. So was doing that for a good 4 years, and now I'm trying my luck in the operations side of things. But That's how I started at Ozinga and kind of how I got involved with the apprenticeship program.
How many years has it been now?
10 years, if you can believe that.
10 years with the company. Mm-hmm. And you've been through a number of roles. That's cool. Barry Luchene.
Yes.
You've got quite a history, too.
I started here in 2007, came on as a driver. I worked in our South Division, and 2015, I had asked to transfer to our Chicago Division. Basically 2 years ago, when they started developing this program, they asked me if I'd be interested in being involved, and through a series of evaluations and trials, and I decided I was pretty excited about being given the opportunity to share my experience, not only from here, but a 25-year driving a garbage truck in the garbage industry before I came here. So I was glad to not just have to ride off into the sunset, but given an opportunity to actually make a difference.
You were a driver before you started here.
I was.
So your history of kind of driver training, you might have a couple different perspectives, which is what we kind of liked. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into the origins of this program, because we can probably stem back 3 years when we started talking about this driver mentor program. And I think when we kind of started going down that road, I wasn't really sure about where it would go, and I don't know if anybody really was, because it's evolved so much now. So Richie, explain what our thoughts were when we hoped to start this program.
Yeah, with the driver mentor program, you work side by side with people that are driving our trucks, hauling to different job sites day in and day out for decades. I mean, Barry's talking about 18 years at Ozinga and another 20 previously driving. So you have decades worth of experience that you don't want to let go, but obviously the industry over time, you do want to start the next chapter rather than bounce around in a truck or going to different job sites dealing with contractors. So as we saw some of our senior drivers looking to retire, we just had conversations with them. Are you willing and able to stick around and let us use your expertise to help train the next generation of driver? I'm sure it took a little bit of selling, but in general, everybody was more than willing to continue to work at Ozinga, just in a different capacity. So it started up in Wisconsin, and then got to the point where now I think we have one or two in every region, which is awesome. All previous drivers, all with plenty of driving experience, that are now off the truck helping managing our training and kind of setting expectations for those new hires we bring on week after week.
Yeah. Was there an issue with the new drivers? Like, why did we want to create an apprenticeship program? Because it's not new, right? There's apprenticeship programs in other industries.
I think it kind of stems from that going to job site and seeing different union tradespeople, all of whom had some form of an apprenticeship program, whether it's carpenters, electricians, plumbers. They spent months, if not years, shadowing somebody, learning the trade, and then eventually being given the stamp of approval to go off on your own. If you flip that to what the Teamsters are providing, it's really not too much of anything. And when I started, training was about 2 weeks with a checklist, which definitely covered the important safety aspects of things, but left a lot that was still out there. So when you and I started working together in 2021, that was one of your biggest priorities, was to try to get more of a structured training program, kind of in line with what everybody else working by us on the job sites had.
Isn't that kind of crazy? Like every trade has that. Laborers, you're there learning for 4 years as an apprentice. It was so concerning with the Teamsters that don't really give you that opportunity. So I'm like, well, good. We're going to take this ownership as a company, and with the help of you guys, that you created a gem. And I love to talk about this because every time I do, people are very interested, especially in the ready-mix side of it. Again, our goal was to get the top gun of ready-mix drivers. I think that Paul Ozinga told me that. We wanted the best, right? And were we seeing issues with newer drivers at that point? Was that the bulk of our incidents, or was it more kind of all over the board?
New hires represented a decent amount of our incidents and injuries, and then in the safety side of things, it's funny how there was almost this curve where after a couple of years behind the wheel, we saw another increase because there was this level of almost confidence of, I've got this handled now, so they're still trying to figure it out. But absolutely, when we hire new individuals to be drivers, I think it's a lot different than what I've heard from previous generations, where people were professional drivers or they knew the equipment, they were mechanically inclined. A lot of the times when we hire new hires, they come from a previous career, nursing, maybe they were serving, maybe they were hairdressers. So we need to show them everything with the industry. And with that, seeing the training program that was in place, we just knew that there had to be kind of a push to make it better.
Yeah.
Well, and thinking back the history of this company too, I think what you're saying is there was an element back in the day, even prior to when I trained and even before that, which I don't think that was the case. I think that a lot of the guys that Ozinga was hiring were guys who knew how to drive a truck or did this or did that. And as the industry has changed, there's so much more to it about it's not just driving the truck. It's, you basically have a factory, you're driving down the road, and you need to know something about that product. You need to know a lot of those things. And with the design of mixes being what they are today, and so much technology going into that, I think it's something that maybe went for years, just figured this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
And was never really, and then all of a sudden, whatever it is that triggered that to say, wait a minute now, we got to do this better. And how? Why do these trades have these apprenticeship programs? How does that benefit them? So I think at some point somebody started asking questions. And going back to 2007 when I trained here, you mentioned minimal for you, but they covered the safety aspects. I don't remember hearing the word safety when I trained here. It was all about shifting gears and getting down the truck, and this is what happened. Try to not get stuck off the road, and this is what you do. That was the focus of things, and not a whole lot beyond that.
And so you have to be much more than a driver.
Yeah,
because that's kind of where you came from, right? You were really good at the driving side of it, but then you realized, I've got to be a chemist. I've got to understand all the different types of mix designs and slumps, and so that all that is going on in your head while you're driving, which takes away from being able to focus on driving. Well,
and the benefit of this program, one of the first things I say to new hires the first few days they're with me after they're hired is, in my opinion, the easiest part of this job is getting to and from the job site. It's all of the other stuff. And it makes sense in that this program gives us the flexibility and the strategy to expose them to the things that are essential up front, and then as they go along, they get deeper into, the other aspects of it as a need basis as they develop and as they become more efficient with what they're doing.
So let's rewind a little bit back to when you started. Mm-hmm. What did your first couple days look like? And kind of give me some detail on, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but just what we were working with in the past. Yeah,
well, so in Illinois South here, and I think I trained out of Mokina one day. I think it was maybe 3 days that I trained. And all that training was basically showing up here in the morning, getting in the truck, getting an overview with the trainer. And this was in a rear discharge truck, so there's 2 seats in the truck, and he would drive, and then I would maybe drive the next load or something like that. With him coaching me along the way, I had the benefit of, like I said, a 25-year career. So handling the truck was not an issue for me. He even made a comment, you should be driving this and not me. But in that day, that worked, yes. But was it? I think a lot of times we were just lucky. And then I trained out of Joliet for a couple of days because they had front discharge there. And so that's a whole nother beast because there's not a second seat. So you have to follow somebody in a pickup truck. I know you guys experience that a lot. Indiana's the same way. So there's regional challenges, and some of those still exist. But that was my experience. I think it was 3 days, and then good luck.
And then we deal with the repercussions on the back end, which I think in a lot of safety programs, that's how it is until we realize, hold on, which is where we were at. Right, we got to that point where we had a lot of new guy issues. We realized it's a tough job to learn on your own or with a trainer. So we realized there was something we had to fix. And the whole industry kind of has this. A lot of new people. Well, how do we train them the right way? And so fast forward now to we created a program. What were your first steps when you said, how am I going to make this apprenticeship program, which probably takes the industry normally years to develop this program? How did you get it done so fast, and where did you start?
I think it was advice from you and Jeff Emmerich, because realistically, you can either be a safety person that tries to do everything completely on your own, and you can end up with no hair, or or you can rely on the people around you who have the experience and knowledge, and that's what we ultimately did. When we talked about making a training program, not just to fit one area, but all of Ozinga and its 7 regions, we had to get a team of people from all of those 7 regions and represent the different positions. So the first order of business was to make sure that we had representation from safety, as well as the local operations crew. We also wanted the regional safety professionals involved. We had a couple people from our HR talent acquisition department involved. And then our fleet department also, because it's so important to have, the truck specifics perfect in that program, because a lot of people come with no driving experience. You also roll that out to our quality control folks, our plant operators, and our existing driver trainers. So the core group that met about a dozen times was mainly safety operations and HR folks from everywhere, but then they also went back to their regions and probably had more than 20 people working on it from QC and sales and plant operation.
It was quite a team. Mm-hmm. I remember sometimes it got a little overwhelming, but so much good feedback. Because you never drove, right?
No, sir.
And I wasn't a driver, but you were. So you're dead on when you say, we don't want to be the safety guys that just create a program and say, this is going to fix everything. Mm-hmm. Like if you were a new driver, what would you want to know? And that's kind of where we started, and you did a great job on that. So explain the program a little bit to me. I know that we had all these meetings, what you said for a better part of a year, we talked about what we wanted in there. Where did we start with content-wise? What did we use for that?
The biggest constraint that we had was different operating areas were on different collective bargaining agreements with their local unions, or we had non-union outfits. So the first was trying to find the common ground that could work for the entire company and expand from there. So I think it was in our first or second meeting when we got together, we talked about the fact that more or less at a minimum, if we have a new hire starting to be a driver, we're going to put them with a driver trainer in every region, and that driver trainer will stay with our new hire and complete our driver field training checklist. And in general, that could take about 2 weeks. Now, don't get me wrong, if somebody had good ready mix experience, they could start in 1 week and be on the truck on their own at the end of that week. But that was where we started. So from there, we wanted to just have that basis of everybody goes through our orientation process, where they come to our Mokina office and learn about the company history and kind of the family culture. And after that, 2 weeks of driver training. And that was the only foundation we had. Everything else was all different in terms of pay scale, where they'd be working, how long their probationary period was, if they even had that. So,
how did you decide what content you wanted in that first 2 weeks? Because it's it's overwhelming at first, right?
Mm-hmm. There's some content that you have to talk about. You have to know how to pre-trip a truck per the DOT. You have to know our incident and accident reporting procedure, because if something comes up, especially at the beginning, we want to know. But then from there, we filled in the gaps using experience from our existing driver trainers and driver personnel across the entire company. We do something that I think is awesome, which we call sophomore training, or some regions will call it freshman feedback. But ultimately, any new hire driver from the previous year gets brought into a room, our regional executive as well as the entire management team's there, and we ask them, what do you think went real well, and then what do you wish you would have known? Using the feedback on what went well, we included more of it and developed those resources, and then what they wanted to know, we then brought that material to our trainers. And once a year after our sophomore training, we host a train the trainer meeting. So we get our heads together, and it's a room of 30, 35 people, all who are driving day to day. And we're asking them, what do you think we could do better? And from there, you go to the different, responsibility holders, whether they're in corporate, whether it's a plant operator, whether they're across the country in Florida, and they have the best answer. But it kind of goes exactly from where we started the program. You take advantage of the people who are doing the job day to day. And for us, it was those trainers.
Well, and I remember some of those early conversations in that room. Many times we'd talk about a topic or something that we're considering for content, and we'd say, is this relevant? Does it make, at this point, does it make sense? And a lot of times it was no, it's really not. So when you take the approach of, kind of connecting the dots as they develop, then it was, I wanted to get back to what you said too about just safety, saying we need to have this program. I think if there was hesitancy from senior drivers and guys who've been around here a long time, it was because they've probably experienced, whether from other jobs or here, or I don't know, but oftentimes that was the procedure. Somebody comes into a boardroom and something, we need to do this, so let's do it and let's get it done. Where this was not that way. And I think as this has rolled out and become exposed to, we're seeing it now every day, and it's become a common thing now, and it's part of what we do. It's making sense because of the way it was developed and because of being intentional about doing that. I think it's made a huge difference.
I agree with you. Because you didn't start the first time Ritchie started in this program, so we kind of brought you in a little bit later, and I'm sure you were a little hesitant, like, oh, great, these safety guys are going to tell me
exactly right. I was, okay, and that's why I said, and I'll check it out. Let's see what's going on. Yeah.
Let's talk about the structure of this. So our goal was 52 weeks, right? I think you said there's 5 phases, right? So explain what phase 1 looks like on paper.
Yeah. Phase 1 is just our orientation process that you had kind of touched on. It really didn't change much. So on the first day, every new hire in Ozinga will come to our Mokina corporate office, so they get the universal same experience. They go through their safety expectations, HR onboarding with their tax information, and then they'll actually meet one of our owners, and they'll be able to talk to a family member and discuss kind of the culture and the history of Ozinga, which typically is a standout moment for a lot of our new hires.
They love that.
Day 2 orientation is held in the regional office, so Barry will be hosting that with his operations manager, their HR supervisor, and then their safety person as well, talking about the regional specific rules as well as what their expectations are for the next day. And that is phase 1. Phase 1 can also include yard tours, where Barry and the other driver mentors will take our new hires around and show them kind of an understanding, a lay of the land. And that wasn't being done everywhere before.
No, and I don't even think that was in initial conversations. I don't remember. So once we started doing this, I thought back to, okay, what was my experience when I was a driver? One of the negatives, especially when I came to the Chicago division, being at the bottom of the seniority list, you're traveling to one of 7 different yards on any given day, and you don't find out till the night before. Other than looking on a map, I knew nothing about those yards. And even though our processes are the same in all of our yards, it's different logistically.
Yeah.
Where do you park? Where are the time clocks? Where are this and that? The culture is different nowadays. I think it's nothing. It's not a negative that I think we have to help them a little bit more, and that's fine. It's not everybody, but just do it and assume. So we show them, you don't have to. If they had to worry about that, I thought if I had to, do I want everybody to go through what I did the first time I went to Evanston and had no clue anything about? I didn't know we parked at the Sam's Club parking lot and had to walk through a gate.
Right.
I didn't know. Fortunately, I was an experienced driver, so I'm not learning all the other stuff. So again, whatever we could expose them to that first few days by doing things like that take the pressure off them before they're even sitting in the truck and have to worry about that or be stressed with that.
That's an interesting point you brought up, that there's some pushback. If there was any pushback from the older drivers, like, well, why didn't I get trained like this? I didn't think that was going to happen.
And I didn't always, it wasn't always a question, it was a complaint. It was a negative, like, well, come on, I didn't need that. And my response to that is always, do you wish you would have had it? Really, was that the good way to do things?
Have you seen that mindset shift a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, there's always a faction that's not going to. But overall, yes, I think it's positively affected the culture, the work culture with the drivers.
Do you think that's helped with getting more involvement from the older drivers? Like, are they getting into the training side of it? Or
I think it's funny you ask this, because I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, because this program was designed, you didn't get a little more into that, we didn't get that far yet, but to have coaches then come on board on the weekly meetings with content and getting them through the program. I think because we've been around for a couple of years now, and they're seeing, the senior guys who've been around along are seeing the value in this. It's going to be easier, especially for me in Chicago. That's going to be my approach in this off season. Hey guys, you've seen this now. We really need and desire for you to be part of this. Again, it's changing the culture, and it's not just a few people. It's breaking down silos between Teamsters and operations and all this kind of stuff. And if you can see that in the benefit of that, I think I'm looking forward to the off season, to that for my year to become better and more efficient next year by being confident that that's going to produce positive results in asking other guys.
I would love to get more people involved.
Yeah.
And I guess from a Teamster mindset, if you can go rewind a little bit, I feel like a lot of drivers just thought, I'm a driver for life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to retire a driver, and then I'm going to fly off into the sunset. Was that how you thought?
Yeah, just because I just really enjoyed doing that. Now seeing this, that what we're doing now, I think it probably would have changed my mindset earlier in my career. And we also focus on that too, that, with new hires, you don't have to always, if you love being a driver, fine. But there are other opportunities in the company. And I don't know if that was ever the focus in the past, but like I said, with this program, I think it opens up people to be open-minded about things.
Mm-hmm. I think even when I started, there wasn't much roadway for after a driver. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much opportunity, but I feel like that's got to be inspiring for a driver to say, you know what, I don't have to drive my whole life if I don't want to. If you want to, great.
Yep.
But now there's a little bit of leeway with what I could do. This company's, like you guys both said, we're supporting that. Right, we want them to have career aspirations, and not that anybody's higher than anybody, but if you want to do something else outside of the truck, we need your knowledge.
Well, and I think that's a challenge. Ritchie talked about it before. The trade unions. This is part of, in hand with the being part of a member of that union. I think that's the one challenge we have as Teamsters. It's not something they're part of. It's we're doing as a company, and hopefully it's going to work well with their thinking as well and seeing the benefit of what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, explain the roles then, because Barry's just one piece of this puzzle as a driver mentor, probably a very, very, very high piece that we need. But you created a couple other opportunities for people to jump in and help out.
Yeah,
explain those.
So our driver mentor manages everything with the program and makes sure that everybody in the program is on the same page, and anything that comes up can obviously be addressed, whether it's new content needed, different conversations, a sit-down meeting with some kind of a big boss, that kind of side. When we get into phase 2, which is immediately after orientation, that's when our new hire is placed with a driver trainer. This is going to be a ready mix driver that's in the truck day-to-day for us, and they volunteered to train the next generation of driver. So phase 2 of the program, our driver trainers go through a series of checklists and then performance reviews as well as feedback forms. So throughout driver training, our trainer will actually make sure that every morning, every load, every night, the guys or gals that they're training are doing the exact same thing. And we have resources from the reference, and we're actually now developing videos which is really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So what's the difference between a mentor and a trainer and a coach?
Yeah, and then the coach comes in right in phase 3, which is once the new hire is off of driver training, they will now be doing the job day to day on their own, and then have a weekly touch point with an experienced driver. So that's going to be our driver coach. So,
Coaches are drivers, right?
Yes, sir.
They are currently drivers. Okay.
Yep. So our driver trainer will do the day-to-day training for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks the new hire is employed with us. The driver coach will then stick on for the rest of their first year. They're going to touch base with them once a week on an assigned topic, and those are gathered both from within the company as well as really heavily relying on outside resources like the NRMCA's driver's manual. And that driver coach will have weekly touch points. The mentor is responsible for assigning those trainers, moving the trainers around, moving the new hires around to different locations so they see our different processes and different equipment, and then touching base with both the trainers and the coaches to make sure that everything's good, that this person we hired is doing well, and that they're on a trajectory to succeed.
So you got a trainer that's kind of the one in the field, in the truck with them.
Mm-hmm.
You got a coach that's going over the content, which is what we kind of developed in that book, right? All the content that we want them to know throughout the year. Where do you fit in?
Well, in Chicago, I'm both of those right now.
Right? Which is okay, right? I mean, that's what every program's gonna be a little bit different.
Yes, but like I said, it's going to be moving forward. Developing the coaches is going to be much more beneficial, I think, in a lot of ways. First of all, it's going to be more efficient with time, making sure we can cover all the content and the time schedule sent up, and just getting more people involved with it. I mean, feeling that, you don't have to stay in your same mindset. You can give back. You don't have to get off the truck to do that. You can, you're volunteering to do this to make the company better.
So you meet with every driver every week?
I'm doing it every other week, and I catch up, I do two sections at a time.
Yeah, but you have touch points with the drivers.
Correct.
And how do you think that's affected their mentality in the truck, their mentality with the company? There's got to be other benefits than just the content, right?
Well, yeah, and I think in my personal opinion and just from experience and feedback talking about those sophomore responses we get at the end of the season when we meet with them again, the most important thing I think we gain from that is a consistent connection in a relationship. And it just, so many of them have said to me, we've never had a company really show that they care about us this way. We've never had a company invest this much into us. And why wouldn't you? We hired you because we think you'd be valuable to our company and an asset to our company. So why wouldn't we continue, especially in an industry where it's challenging, the first 5 years are, you don't feel settled really. You talk to the average guy and they say, when did you start feeling really confident in what you're doing? And he said, probably a good 5 years.
5 years.
And even now, there's always a new experience. They hear me say all the time, we do the same thing every day, but we don't. And
right.
It's true. It's very true.
Mm-hmm. Every single load's different.
Yep.
And I know you're not one to puff your chest out, but if I can share a quick story, at the end of or beginning of this year, you had our safety summit where we brought in new hires that were a part of the apprenticeship program. I know the person that you brought, the person that Indiana brought, Illinois North, Wisconsin, Florida, all of them were brand new drivers, both to the industry and Ozinga. And I think every one of them, but I can specifically remember your driver that looked and said, I want to say thank you to my mentor, Barry, for always being there for me. And hearing Barry, Lenny, whoever it may be coming up, I think that spoke volumes because there wasn't that person before. They may start at 4 a.m, being the driver, and they may get done long after their boss may no longer be present or might not be around. So I think having the mentor in place gave new hires the confidence to know that somebody who's done the job before is in their corner. Mm-hmm. And that was just a perfect example to see it kind of in action in a room full of however many managers.
You're like the dad of the team there,
mm-hmm.
right? I know I'm going to go to Barry and he'll know what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Our dispatch manager has tagged me with the title of Uncle Barry.
So, Uncle Barry?
Yeah.
Like the smart uncle that can go.
I don't know what he meant by it, but it's kind of stuck. So, yeah.
But you brought up a good point. I forgot about that. But, we had all the new hires in that after their first year. And there's such a connection between those new hires and the mentors. And I believe that a couple of them even mentioned, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the mentor. Mm-hmm. I know you know that. You probably have a couple like that.
I do. We have a couple of years ago, we had a driver that just really, really struggled, and if it wasn't for the flexibility that this program gives us, because of that relationship, that this is what I do. I focus on new hires. I am a resource for them. So in that, there's flexibility. And we just felt, because of who we are as a company, wanting to make an impact on generations to come, and if we didn't have this and didn't believe that, this person wouldn't be working here today. And it was life-changing for him. But as it went along, other guys saw that he was struggling, and they helped him. And we've had a couple more since then. So, like I said, it's just to be able to do that, knowing that you're going to be life-changing for this job and a potential career for people, and being part of that and seeing it take place has just been, for me, it's just encouraging, and a whole bunch of things.
I think the coolest part about this, and I don't want to call it a program because I think this is a leadership opportunity. And I think the coolest part about that is we've seen a lot of people stand up. And you guys could probably answer that better, but you know, at first everybody's like, I'm not touching that. And then now fast forward, I see it's going well. How do I get involved? I like teaching people, or I like being a leader. And then you can start pinpointing like your best leaders. Well, because there's a lot of them out there.
Exactly. And then the path to career growth that we talked about might not have been something a lot of people saw 20 years ago, is through safety, which, to the first point we were talking about, is so much better for the culture and that purpose that we're trying to live into, you know, because if everybody has safety at the forefront of their mind and had some kind of a safety role, whether it's in training and coaching, being a safety starter, whatever it may be, it helps progress that culture.
Yeah.
Well, I want to back up to what you were talking about, phase one, that first week. So when I think all of our divisions are doing the yard tours, right? So not only is my focus during those 2 or 3 days the facility, but when we're there, we stop and we go up to batch, introduce to people, introduce drivers that happen to be in the yard, and this and that. And so they're getting a feel for things, and vice versa. The drivers are getting interact with guys who, in our division, they wear orange hard hats their first year because that signifies them as new.
Yeah.
Now, there could be some negative that comes with that, but overall it's been positive.
I've ever pushed back on that one.
Yeah, there was. But that's along the way between yards too, I also stop at job sites that are high profile that we're doing, you know, and they see operations. We get out of the truck and even talk with the labor. We'll walk right up when they're doing flat work, and they'll remember me oftentimes from the yard. Hey man, what are you doing now? And I'll introduce them to new guys, and they'll give the new guys advice right then and there.
Right.
So it just kind of starts. We're kind of creating an expectancy now. The guys see what's going on, and so I think it's just a natural thing that as this becomes normal and just part of who we are and what we're doing. Okay, it's and 100% response I've gotten from every new hire in the last 3 years is 99% of the time they feel accepted and get help from anybody around them.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about putting a different color hard hat on our new people. There's a little bit of pushback, and some of that pushback was, well, they're just going to be, castigated on the job site, or somebody's going to say, we don't want the new guy and turn the load around. But tell me how that might be different in reality.
There's always some of that, but it's kind of changed a little bit that we've had sales talk to some of their customers and say, hey, our new guys are wearing orange hard hats. Help them out, will you? You're just trying to change rather than look for an opportunity to abuse them or say, I never want a new guy on my job site. Help them be better. Come on, we've all been new at something, right? We've all started somewhere. Right. And it's been much more of a positive than negative. And even senior guys in the yard, they see an orange hard hat, and they might hesitate and think, they'll be watching them and thinking, hey, you don't look like you know what you're doing right now. You need to talk to me. Or they'll just go up to them and say, hey, man, what are you struggling with?
That's the theory.
Yep.
Teamwork, right?
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yep.
So I think it's created quite a bit of camaraderie for you, other than just the knowledge piece.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about phase 3, because we got phase 2 is a little bit more of the training side of it with a trainer.
Yeah.
What do we get into after that?
Phase 3 encompasses the time that they were released from their driver trainer, sitting in a truck day to day with an existing ready mix driver, and a new hire is now on their own, free to do the job, but we meeting once a week with an existing driver that we call a driver coach. Some regions do have their driver mentor handle that, and that's totally acceptable. The main thought process is have an experienced driver review set topics. Phase 3 covers equipment maintenance, roadway concerns, product knowledge, and then environmental issues.
So why did you pick those 4?
Those are topics that are incredibly relevant for our company. They kind of break down our processes great, and they also come directly from the National Ready Mix Concrete Associates Driver's Operators Manual. So we used their overarching topics, and then we developed our own Ozinga content for it. That content will ultimately result in both a knowledge check with a physical quiz and then a performance evaluation in the field.
So phase 3 is when you really start meeting with them the most?
Yes.
So for those topics, what were they again?
Equipment maintenance, roadway concerns, product knowledge, and then environmental issues.
Okay, so when you talk about equipment and maintenance, what do you do with them?
So they have in their folders that we give them, they have a couple pages prior to that to read, and then it's covering that topic, and then you have a page that's got 7 or 8 questions related to that topic. A lot of times they don't necessarily read it, but I'll sit with them. Usually I'll meet them on a job site, or when they get in the yard, they got some time. And it's all coordinated with dispatch. They know that, we kind of work together when this is going to work the best during the day. They'll sit with me in my truck sometime for 20 minutes, and we'll generally go over it. And I say, hey, no, I want you to answer these questions. Because the goal is I want you to understand what we're putting in front of you, whether you've answered it prior to not. So the process is the same, continued through that. And oftentimes it's things that I'll tell them, this might seem kind of generic or irrelevant. Let me share an experience where it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
This is where it could make a
reality.
difference. Yeah, exactly.
So that's like week 1. Then you go to product knowledge, right? Do you sit down with QC?
Yeah, quality control, very similar to what Barry was saying. We want to introduce them at the forefront of their career and then keep on having them go back and talk with them so that way they can learn and grow. It's always the number one thing we hear from our new hires when we bring them in for that software training. What do you want to know more about? Well, I don't want any rejected loads. I don't want to have my load do something I don't know, so I want to know more about the mix. And like Barry had talked about, every day there's different mix designs, there's different additives, different cement substitutes that we're using. So as a company, our thought is if that's what you need to know, then we're doing a pretty good job on the training side of things. But product knowledge definitely covers a lot of different more QC topics and needs quality control's help, and also helps to build that relationship, which is so important.
Well, think about it. How could you learn 3,000 mix designs, right?
And that's why we're very intentional about communicating, especially their first couple months their first season on the truck. Listen, QC, they're the product experts. We want you to become the driver expert first, and we're going to give you the basics of what you need to know. But before you leave a yard, you make sure you've talked to somebody from QC or even a senior driver next to you. Hey, I'm going here. I need this. This is my mix. Am I good to go?
Right.
Rely on them.
Well, they learn slump too.
Yep.
Maybe explain for those that aren't familiar with ready-mix concrete, what does slump mean, and why is it so hard to learn right away?
It's ultimately the water content and how loose the material is. So the lower the slump, the thicker the material is, and the drier it is. So if you have a 10-inch slump, then you can safely assume that that's going to be pretty watery, and the concrete's going to look more like a soup.
Right, more like a flowable fill kind
Exactly. But something that always makes your stomach drop as a producer is getting a call or an email from a customer saying, we had low breaks. There's something that you poured that's not meeting strength. One of the benefits of this program is you introduce quality control to our new hires, and you have them spend time with quality control, so now they know how to do a slump test. They know how to do an air test. They know how to make cylinders. If they're on the job site and they see some of these third-party testers that aren't following those processes, they may not know it's exactly the same thing, but they can at least give our guys the heads up that, hey, you may want to look into this, so that way we don't find out months down the road, which is another huge benefit of that program.
Yeah, well, again, this is something that's their responsibility other than driving, right? Because we don't want to have to go tear out concrete. So we're very, very big on the QC side of it, and I'm glad that they sit with the QC reps and say, like, this is how you should be driving, this is how you should be pouring.
Well, and even farther along in phase 4 of the content, we have 2 or 3 sections that talk about quality control procedures. And goes into detail about that. And I said, you don't need to totally, we want you to be able to recognize, to look at what's going on and recognize, I don't think that's right. So if you get a rejected load, you could ask why, and then follow up with communication with QC or dispatch after that.
So what were the other 2 topics? that you kick off with?
Roadway concerns.
Okay.
And that is all focused on Smith System defensive driving and its principles.
Yep.
We tell our new hires, you're driving a billboard. Unfortunately, there are some bad actors out there that want to have that billboard pay for their beat up Corolla or whatever it may be. So we see that we actually get hit more often than others will hit us, but either way, we need to be very cautious because that can seriously impact both our driver as well as the public around us. So roadway concerns is all about both driver safety and then how to drive with environmental concerns, like if we're in low light, if we're operating in the winter, which plagues most of us other than our coworkers in Florida, and all of those different topics.
You got hurricanes.
Exactly.
And that deals with washing out correctly, and that's one of our purpose statements, right? Is the community as well. We want to have that concern, so we want to train heavy on it.
Yeah, and that's our fourth topic in phase 3, environmental issues, and that's all about situations. If you have a hydraulic or an oil leak from your truck, if there's some concrete spillage, if there's a bad washdown area, what do our new hires do? Because a lot of the times that would be very out of the ordinary, where a senior driver may be kind of scratching his head or her head wondering, what should I do? So we want to give them a general guideline of, please let us know. Ultimately, do not spread the mess and do what you can to contain it until we're able to report it properly.
Well, yeah, and get them to think about it because, something like, your truck's leaking, it's leaking hydraulic oil. What are you going to do? Do you ever really think about that? No, you don't. You just think,
you panic when it does
I have to put oil in it. Well, in the meantime, what are you going to do? Because you've spilled on the ground, and depending on where you're at in the situation, it stimulates thought.
Exactly.
Yeah. So phase 3 gets us through basically the first 2 months or so.
Which is typically the probation period, too.
And that's how we structured it. Because previously, a new hire would get released from training, and there could be the chance where their operations manager is focusing on a lot of other different constraints, and they have that probationary period come and go without really being able to give it a close review.
Explain the probation period.
When a new hire starts in any of our areas where we work with our local unions, they have a period of time. It could be 30 working days, it could be 90 calendar days, or it could be 12 full months where they do not have full union rights and protection because as a company, we need to evaluate whether or not they are a good fit. So that's something that varies literally state to state, CBA to CBA. So we wanted to make sure that we had a final review, and it's multifaceted, but one of the biggest reasons is having guys like Barry and other people who started with him, seeing new hires start, seeing new hires not meet their expectation, which of course, the grass is always greener, but then have them get by probation and start making the same wage they make based on the contract. So this was designed to give more control ability, decision-making ability to our mentors, to our trainers, and to our coaches.
How long is that period?
It will vary. So in Illinois, it'll be 45 working days, and in Wisconsin, it's 90 calendar days.
And not only that, it's just become a great evaluation. Like he said, you might have somebody that's a good driver, but during the course of that time, you're seeing things that, I'm not sure you're a good fit culturally for this company. And it's a good time for me as the mentor, being that this is all I'm focusing on. It's opened up communication between myself and the operations managers and dispatch and all these who are also observing. And we talk regularly and say, hey, is there anything I should be checking up on this guy? Or they'll call me and say, hey, you might want to follow up and see and talk to somebody about such and such. So it's an evaluation period to, like you said, are we hiring this person? We're not afraid to walk away after 3 or 4 weeks and realize you're doing some stuff. You're on probation and you're doing this now. We make a judgment. This is going to be a problem that we don't need to deal with.
Some people might say this, but I don't think it is. Is this just a way to get rid of people? Because that's what people are going to say.
Totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Totally. It might be a way to have a benefit, right?
Yeah.
Make them stick more long term and be a positive. Anybody who's in any kind of trucking knows it's hard to find quality drivers. And that's always what you hear when you have a new policy or a new safety practice. You're trying to squeeze people out. There's no intention of ever getting rid of the most important part of our workforce. But you need to make sure that people who are here will do the job well and not be a net negative and require others to pick up the slack.
Correct.
It gives us the ability to focus on what they're not good at. And if we do, if we feel like they're a fit, but they need some extra work, getting that feedback from operations, from our trainers, from our coaches, and say, Mike's a good guy, but he needs to work on backing or needs to figure out slump a little bit more.
Well, and like you said earlier, it's created team because of this structure. It's created team where it's interactions, it's not just one person that's making evaluation.
Right.
We're talking to other management about it.
Or
And so-
nobody.
yeah. And so it's, like I said, it's become a very positive thing.
Well, what did we do in the past? We just kind of let that
A lot of
period go
times-
by and didn't help them get to where they needed to be, or we were stuck with bad people.
Well, and I don't know if it was, we focus a lot on the term, everybody's going to make new guy mistakes.
Yeah.
They do. You just do in any job, but especially in this job. There's going to be new guy mistakes, but it's trying to, this process minimizes that and hopefully eliminates a lot of them. In the ones, and we're trending, you keep the stats and you're seeing that it's making a difference. And I think it's a lot of things that attribute to that.
Well, you mentioned it, and it was a little scary to me when you said it the first time, but sometimes it takes 5 years for somebody to feel comfortable. It's like, I think that was one of the reasons we started this. Like, I'd rather front load all this content and all this information, all this training. Hopefully we can shorten that a little bit.
Well, yeah, and that'd be interesting, to follow up on in a few years now once we really get this dialed in and after a few more years. And has that changed? I don't know. Or is it just the nature of this industry?
Yeah.
And I think I'm thinking that, okay, I can get a ticket and you can send me anywhere, any circumstance, and I'll be good. Not that there's not stress or pressure with that. There always is. But I'm confident enough that I can meet those challenges.
Well, and I think the comfort and the confidence comes from those relationships you were talking about earlier. When you're introducing them to the plant operator, quality control tech, different trainers, the salespeople in their yard, you may not know it, but you know who to go to, and now you're not wondering or almost waiting like the kid, hey, can I get a second? You know their name, and hey, Barry, do you mind helping me with this before I head out on that load?
Give me your best response to this feedback. Man, this seems like a lot of training, a lot of time. I don't have time for that as a company. It's not going to benefit me. I'm not doing it.
And we heard some of that. What we always talked about was, can you say that a weekly touch point with an experienced driver with every new hire is a net negative? And it didn't matter who you were. If you were the guy running the plant for 50 years, that none of this was in place beforehand, they look at you and they go, no, that's a good thing. And that's what we're asking for. Everything else was in place. That is what we are asking for, is a once-a-week touch point with an experienced driver.
Yeah, and to me, that's the one word is it's relationship. Value human beings enough to know that we're all relational beings. It makes us better. It makes us more complete people.
Yeah.
And so having a company willing to invest in just that because of all this other stuff coming together, that should be the focus.
I remember this is probably 2 years ago, we started doing a significant amount of training, not just with the apprenticeship program, but just training in general. And I think it was the North that said we tracked every hour of training we were doing and wanted to see how much time we were spending on this and if we got a benefit. And they realized we did about 10,000 hours of training with all of our people, which is like, whoa, sticker shock. And then they realized actually our production sped up, our quality sped up, and we're not having as many lost loads, and drivers know where they're going now and they know how to get there faster because they're planning ahead. And that's the benefit of any training program, is it's going to affect more than just the knowledge. It's going to affect your, like you said, camaraderie. It's going to affect all your teamwork. It's going to affect all the different aspects of how fast we're doing our jobs right.
Our goal is not to get fast. Our goal is to get efficient.
Yep.
And
Well said.
yeah.
And eliminate loss. So, all right, where are we at with we're at phase 4 now. Where did we get this content? So this is the meat of it, right?
Yeah, so this will span from the week 10 through week 50 of a new hire's first career. So this is immediately after the probationary period, which we safely assume was those 9 working weeks. And this is a weekly touch point with an experienced driver. You had talked about earlier, new hires have different demands and different things that come up in needs. So phase 4 has an assigned topic every 3 weeks, where we're going to use a lot of content from the NRMCA as well as external sources and Ozinga's own content. They still have those overarching broad goals of product knowledge, roadway concerns, environmental issues, and equipment maintenance, because those are foundational. But we expand on those. And every 4th week, we leave room for a supplemental topic. This could be you hit an overhead wire. We want to talk about looking up and looking down below to look for those hazards as you're pulling off the commercial roadway. Could also be a reminder on PPE. It could be a reminder on safe driving or a Smith system refresher if we see concerns with your drive cam safety score. It really covers a lot of different topics, but it's something where it provides a flexibility where at least once a month we can focus on any issues an individual may have and then plug in specific things to address those.
Well, and oftentimes it can be response. I noticed this summer. It could be response to something that is a negative trend going on in a lot of the yards. Hey guys, pre-trips are a problem. You know, a lot of guys aren't doing them. You know, and so talk about it. You know, it could be anything like that. So you have the flexibility again to respond to something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, that's that fourth week or whatever, the supplemental material. Mm-hmm. If a guy starts in June, that could be different than a guy that starts in December. Your first supplemental topic might be like, hey, let's learn to winterize your truck.
Yeah, it's nothing.
We're not doing that in January.
It's not structured. Yeah, no.
So that gives you a lot of leeway, and like many safety programs, we need to create the opportunity to talk about safety and knowledge, and then the smart people will do it. Yep. And I think that's kind of what this program is doing. So every week there's a different topic, and sometimes it's a mentor, sometimes it's a coach. So shout out to the NRMCA for all that content, because I think it was great. I mean, it's a really good information of what a ready-mix driver should know by week 52 of working here.
I completely agree. And Barry and the other mentors helped tremendously on some of the topics that we created. Getting ready for the workday, getting home safely, physical fitness, the ready mix mindset. Because in interviews, you'd be shocked. We almost try to talk people out of the job because we don't want to sell it and then have them start and not realize that you don't know when you're going to start the next morning until later in the evening the day before, and you don't know when you're going to end.
Or if you're going to work. Today we got 15 guys sitting home today. Yep. You know, I can't tell you why. Is it because we're slow? Is it because of the weather? I don't know, and we can't control that. Right. So there's so many intangibles with this job, especially those first 5 years, that if you can weather the storm, guys, trying to get you to look past that, but we don't want to sugarcoat anything up front.
Yeah. Yep. The ready mix mindset.
Yes, sir.
So that's just one of the weeks.
That's where we almost start with. I believe that's the first topic in phase 4. Because we want to have that understanding of you're through probation, but you're not completely over the hump yet. You have tons of support, but understand here's where the real day-to-day starts, where it may not seem like you're recognized every day, but you are recognized, and that's what our coaches and our mentors help to push.
Yeah. Week 50, you said that goes through.
Yep.
What's the last 2 weeks of the year? What do you do?
Week 51 is when our driver mentors that started the program with our new hires catch back up with them, and they do the same evaluations that they had done in phase 3.
Right.
And the goal there is to make sure that nothing slipped, and then to give us a good baseline for potential sophomore training that we may want to roll out. And week 52 is all about confetti and graduation celebrations.
That's fun.
Exactly. We want to recognize our new hires' accomplishment and really make it something. So we'll meet them in their yard, give them a certificate with a challenge coin, as well as hopefully have a nice little yard lunch, so that way they can get lunch for all their new coworkers that they've been working side by side with for a full 52 weeks.
They feel like, yeah, we made it.
Exactly, and they get a new hard hat, to Barry's point earlier.
Well, in the response I get oftentimes, Barry, does this mean I don't get to meet with you anymore? You know?
Really?
It's great to hear, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I've gotten that several times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, where do you think this could go? What's the next steps of this program? Are we doing it in different divisions or different regions? Where do you think we could go with it?
I do think this could grow to other divisions and other regions, but I also think that it's good to think about potential second-year training programs, or a way to trim some of the apprenticeship program down and then train our existing coworkers. Because a lot of guys may not want to know how to shift the truck or something that remedial, but they do want to know this content. They want to know what the company's position is on different things and what our new hires are seeing. So some kind of trimmed down version for somebody who's been here 20 years, but without showing it like we're holding their hand, you know?
And I have had the comment from a couple of our driver trainers. So also in the off season, we have a day called Train the Trainer, where we're reviewing things and the way we're doing things and going over content. And I had, the first time that they looked at the actual program, you know, our apprenticeship material, they were thumbing through it. And a couple guys said to me, man, I wish I didn't known this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
I still don't know that.
Yeah.
So both of you do Train the Trainer, but I think you both maybe do it a little bit different. You talk so much about sophomore training. Maybe explain. So you meet with the sophomore, which is right after the first year. You get all that content, and then you said you do a Train the Trainer. What does that look like?
Well, for us, we start with the survey we gave to the sophomores. We redact personal information because we don't want anything to be too, critical of each other. But we talk honestly about, here's what our new hires said. You guys did great. We really appreciate your time. But here's how we need to learn and grow. Of course, management will have their ideas, but none of that's set in stone. And it's all open for conversation with our driver trainers. After we review that, we cover changes to the apprenticeship program, which the trainer will always come after our driver mentor review that's down here in corporate. And after the classroom, we will go to the field and we walk through how to use 3 points of contact, how to rack a chute, how to put a chute on, how to get up on the truck, how to wash down. And this is by far the hardest to keep our group of 30 to 40 trainers on track because everybody has an opinion. I don't wash down that way. I don't rack the chute that way. We're not trying to tell you how to do the job. We want you to know how Ozinga expects you to show our new hires to do the job.
Right.
Whether that's through ergonomic assessments or incidents in the past where we just cannot put our people at risk.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's things that change every year for our company. I mean, if we're not changing our safety program, then we're not getting better. So that's a good opportunity for us to say, hey, we no longer allow people to hang extension chutes on our chutes.
Exactly.
Okay, so you as a trainer, that's what you need to train the new people because it's something that changed in the company. We're not sure if it's getting out to the field, but that's an opportunity to, this is how we're training.
Yeah, because we have to eliminate to things like that, we have to eliminate the response that the next guy is going to get, well, the guy before you did that, so does everybody know? And I think that's one thing I'm finding in Chicago. I've been following Richie's lead on Train the Trainer. We are not as advanced as they are into it, but this year we are going to be because we have 16 trainers, and except for a couple, I have not had part of selecting who they were.
The trainers?
Yes, they've been doing it for years. Well, how have they been doing it? I don't know. To what you said, is everybody doing it the Ozinga way? I want to make sure we're all on the same page. And granted, on the day-to-day, everybody has their own whatevers that become comfortable with them. But are you covering the basics of what you need to be covering? And rather than make assumptions, we need to do a deeper dive into that in Chicago.
That's probably something we've done too much is we've got guys training, thinking that they're training how we expect them to train, but they're probably training on how they do the job, which might not be right all the time. So this is a good opportunity for you to kind of correct that.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I know we're thinking about creating a bulker one. You think that's something that would benefit in the field as well?
I do. I think that they face a lot of the same constraints we did. They'll have parts of their workforce that start in various locations across the company, a lot of our ready mix yards, and they won't see a manager every single day, so they can't do a lot of this driver training. I know that our cement transportation group has a driver mentor that goes around and does that, and I think that this is a program obviously being tweaked because they have different routes, they have different travel times, but this is most certainly something that could be applied to them. Aggregate haulers, a lot of different groups where you don't start all at the same time like at a UPS or a FedEx kind of deal.
Well, and I think what you were saying, our cement division, the bulker drivers, yes, because it would be beneficial. And I think we've already seen in the last year since you appointed a mentor there, Antoine, it's made a difference in that division. And it started with what? A relation. They don't have a structure, it's a relationship, right? They got a guy that's a resource for them to help them, and that's where they're beginning with it. So I think any development you can get beyond that is absolutely going to be a benefit.
I think that's kind of the fun part about a program like this is we didn't think we would get to this point when we first started it. And to your point, when Antoine, he was actually at our safety summit on a panel saying, nobody gives the bulkers respect. Nobody helps us with anything. And people open their eyes a little bit. And then kudos to the leader of that group and said, well, then you're the guy. Now you're coming in and you're going to change this all for us. And you should see the change in that group just from some leadership. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a company that says, I like that idea, how do I start?
I think you can't be afraid to fail. And you also need to be cautious about letting a good person go, because for us, it was a lot of a timing thing where we had a lot of good people that were closer to the end of their careers that we now let focus on something specific that nobody was focused on directly before. We had operations managers and dispatch managers, but they had a lot of other responsibilities. Our driver mentors are pulled in a million directions, so I'm not trying to downplay what they need to do, but their main priority and focus should be on the development of those new hires.
People.
And if you look at a lot of different industries, trainers, that is how it works. So trucking, ready-mix concrete in general should be no different in my mind. And it's not going to work perfect to begin with. We all had pain points that we had to work through together. But as long as you have somebody dedicated to it, like, who cares? I think you'll succeed.
Well, and I would think you need to realize that we all need to do it better.
Right.
Start with that, establish some goals, and just start. And then develop it as it goes. Don't be afraid. Like you said, don't be afraid. It's not all going to work. We're still making changes. We still,
Exactly.
and we're going to
And
continue to evaluate.
Yeah.
Forever, hopefully.
But just start.
Exactly.
Find the right people
Yep.
and empower them. That's like any program.
That's huge. Yep.
Find-
Trust them and empower them.
Yeah, if you find a Barry or your mentors that's currently a driver, and there's a little bit of ambition there to help other people out, give them power.
Well, and that's how this started for me. When they approached me and asked me if I'd be interested, and then once I committed to it, leadership said, "Hey, we're not sure how this is going to work, but we trust you we think you'll figure it out." And that's very encouraging, and it's challenging, and it's a whole bunch of emotion, but it's ultimately very positive.
I believe it's made all of our people dramatically better. I'd love to see some statistics on, are we having a lot less lost loads? Are we more on time? Are we stuff that I think will be a repercussion of training them better? So
I agree. But I think even those soft and more intangible things, like what did they think about the company? How comfortable do they feel coming to work? Are they in that right mindset? And those lead to injury prevention on a scale you really can't see or ever know. But that's where, at least hopefully, I always think is we're in a good spot, because they know Ozinga cares, they know Barry cares, they know their mentor cares. So it just helps.
Ritchie, Barry, I want to thank you for creating this program, for running this program. I think that anybody interested in trying to make their drivers better, this type of apprenticeship program is the way to get us there. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for coming and talking about it. Everybody stay safe out there. Continue to chase zero. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe to Chasing Zero wherever you get podcasts, and find full video of this conversation by searching Chasing Zero on YouTube. For company updates and social media, visit us at ozinga.com.